normal, or should I say I've been driving a little bit better. The car's always goes well. It just it's debatable as to whether I drive well or not. So I thought I would just run through the car. Obviously, it's going to, well, not obviously, but it's going to be the last time I am going to be able to do anything in between now and Eastbourne on Friday night. So I thought I'd just going to tidy up some motors. Going to quickly run through that. Going to just make sure that the car is all set up and ready. I did it all last weekend. Maybe talk you through some tyres, the prep that I do with my tyres. And any other odds and sods excuse me, with the body shell, make sure that they're all fitted and in good shape for the weekend. I would like to make sure that I can turn up Friday, get my pit space, and then chuck it down on the track in practice on Saturday and go from there. The only thing that I'll be doing will be just putting oils on, and that will be it. Nothing will be done. I might rebuild my shop, but other than that, the car has been stripped, cleaned up, reset, put my Eastbourne setup on, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to start off with looking at a few motors. Let me just put my little YouTube channel up here so I can see any questions if they come through. If you've got any questions, fire them over. I'll be happy to help, whether it be on, you know, setup, motors, your controller, anything. Feel free to throw them in the chat column, and I'll do my best to answer. Again, I'm not saying I am the oracle on all of this stuff, but I'm passionate and always willing to learn and hopefully help others to get better. So let me move my little camera down here. So this is one of my motors that I ran at Chesterfield. Here's all three of them, in fact, and there's one in the car as well. So these four I want to just strip out and clean. And what I'll always do before I do that, I'll always chuck them on the Motorlyzer, just see what's afoot, see if anything's changed or anything. If you're watching in, let me know where you're watching from. Always nice to hear you and your stories about RC. Now, my aim is to stream some stuff at the weekend, but for some reason this streaming lark is not quite as easy. We had some issues with the internet at Chesterfield, that's why it was on and off, but it seems as though when it's long-term streaming it does struggle a little bit. So hopefully I'm going to be running it through my telephone, which will get the stream as good as it can be, but we will see. So I'm just popping the Motorlyzer together here. Everybody loves a bit of motor stuff. Thanks for all your support on the channel. If you've recently subscribed and liked while you're here, would be super cool if you could subscribe to the channel. For those of you who don't know, all of the funds from this channel will be put back into RC, and I will be running an RC event when the time comes for 12 scale and buggy. It will be an event that, all being well, will be free for competitors, and as I say, all the funds will be coming from this channel, so non-profit and all that. I'll pop that on there, and maybe I can pull that forwards so you can bit of a closer look on the data. I don't think that's going to necessarily work. I'll hold it up at the camera. So spin that up. Let me write these down on a bit of paper here. I usually write it down on my whiteboard, but it makes a hell of a mess. Now, I did notice quite a bit of difference between all of the motors that I ran at Chesterfield. So this one is at 14.60, and I've had people messaging me for things that I'm looking for with the motors, but the reality is until you put them on a dyno, you can't really gauge exactly what the motor offers up, because it's not got any load on it, and so therefore you can't really tell what the motor can do either until you put it on a dyno or put it on the track. So those are the two ways forwards of getting a bit more insight into your motor. There are certain things that I look for in a motor and what I want to see, but other than that, I just stick it on the track and see how it performs. So I will show you what these numbers are in a moment. Just while I take them down, I always take them down before I clean them out. That one. That. Most of you will be watching this on repeat, I'm sure. But if you liked it, or if you're enjoying it, the video, give us a like. That would be very much appreciated. That one on there. Okay. So I've done the 3 motors there. So first one, if I turn that around, well, make sure I get that right. So those are the numbers. Show you those. Hopefully you can see those okay. I'll just double check that you can all see those okay. So working from top to bottom, this is RPM, this is kV, this is how many amps it's drawing, this is the timing, that's the asymmetry, and that's the deviation. So those are the motors and the sort of data that I'm getting from them. And then what I'm going to do is pull them apart and give them a bit of a clean, and then I will retest them. Always like to keep on top of everything, make sure everything's clean and tidy. All the attention to detail at the end of the day is what the class is about, really. All the various little adjustments and tweaks that we need to have to make them run as smoothly as possible. So let's get myself a little brush. I'm just going to brush the stuff out. Let us know where you're watching from if you're out there. Always keen to hear from you. Tell me what I could do better. Well, equally tell me what I do well. I would be doing this anyway, whether I was filming it or not, so I just figure I'd film it, and those that are interested are interested, those that aren't, we'll switch her off. But you can see here there's quite a lot of dust coming out of the can. I'll make sure that she's as dust free as possible. Take out the little shim that's in there. Shimming is quite an important part. You can get quite a bit of improved performance just by shimming the motor well. They come really with quite a lot of gap or play when you get a motor. And again, I think can't remember who said it, but obviously they're mass produced, or supposedly not, but they're done by hand at some point, I guess. But anyhow, you want to make sure that your motor is shimmed appropriately. It was all oiled and last time, so I'm not going to put any more oil in, because it's all from that standpoint I'm pretty comfortable that everything is in good shape in there. So always spin that, and then that way it doesn't hit the sensor board. I know that the shims are in the, will have the right amount of shims in. Put that on there. You want to make sure that you put the sensor board the right way around. Clean out the end. Put that bolt back in. that one done. So I might just retest that while I'm here. A, B. So those numbers have changed, as they usually do whenever I clean out a motor. So the RPM and the kV are nuts and bolts the same. The amp draw has changed from 4.2 to 4.05. The timing has gone from 48 to 47.6. The asymmetry has gone from 0.8 to 0.4. Sorry, deviation rather, and the asymmetry has gone from 0.8 to 0.7. So, arguably, numbers have improved. That's one done. See what number 2 offers up. Much the same process, obviously. Sweeping out the rubbish. Put the shim back on. Give the sensor board a little dust, being as careful as possible. And you can, depending on what your sensor boards are like, you can move these little sensors around. You can get an iron, a little soldering iron, and just have a little, if you buy a second-hand motor, and these little black boxes, so these are the sensors here. You can get your soldering iron, and you can't take it off, but you can just nudge the sensor across just by heating it up gently and nudging it across. That's what a lot of guys will do to improve the sensor board. sensor board, that certainly helps the performance of the motor. Put that one in there. Definitely a benefit if you rotate your motors during a meeting, without doubt. Having a cool motor is definitely an advantage. Run it all day, the internals get hot and they never really cool down over, even as over an hour. It's still got some temperature left in there, so if you can, I would say even a cooler motor that's not quite as good performance is better than a hot motor that has good performance. I think you'll find after 3 or 4 runs with the same motor, that will drop off by the end of the day. So put them on the wrong way around. Annoying. So that one dropped in RPM from 14,680 to 14,480. KV stayed the same. The current dropped from 4 amps to 3.6 amps. The timing dropped from 46.9 to 44.7. Deviation went from 0.3 to 0.4. And the asymmetry went down to 0.1. So, much the same as asymmetry, deviation of nuts and bolts the same. Do the same with the last one. That's the same thing. Give it a brush out and you see that a lot of stuff's come out. Give the sensor board a little wipe. if you've just joined us. Just doing a sort of last checks before the National, so that when I get to the track, nothing left to do, everything's stripped and ready. So I've taken down the data on these motors and then I'm retesting them, see what's changed. So just doing the final one. Then I'm going to move on to the car. Just going to go through everything, have another little look over it. This one was 14260, this is now 14321. The kV is the same, amp draw is the same. Timing is now 47.8. The deviation is 0.8. And the asymmetry is 0.1. So they're all now nice and clean and ready to go, which makes me very happy. Helps my OCD. So I'm just gonna mark them up as to which motor I'm going to use when. I just marked the X on the X factor. I've got three different marker colours. And then that way I know which one's which. Few more of you watching on this evening. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you want me to answer any questions or cover any topics. So they're all marked up: black, red, and blue. So they're the motors. I've got one in there already. That'll be used for practice and round one. Good. That's done. Don't need that anymore. Put the motorizer away. On national weekends, I don't take a motorizer or any of my motor stuff with me for a few reasons. Firstly, it stops people asking me, can I quickly check their motor? For selfish reasons, because it's normally a busy time and you want to focus on your own stuff. And secondly, you start getting caught up in motorising motors over the weekend and all that kind of stuff. It can only sow sort of seeds of doubt. I'm not really interested in seeds of doubt. I've got enough of those anyway. So I leave all of this stuff at home. So that's that done. One less thing to carry around. Put that away. So then we're going to just take a little look at the shock. I think I'm not overly happy with that. I'm going to just rebuild that for my own peace of mind. So what I will do to start with is measure the shock length. And then that way I know that the shock length, when I put it back on the car, it will be pretty close to where I want it. There's my tools there. So we will move that. So if you've ever, when you build a shock or take a shock off and there's air in it, you'll feel it's all kind of notchy in there. And that's what that is, which isn't ideal. I need some tissue paper. Welcome along. Got any questions? Feel free to fire them over. Always good to hear from you. Just going to plug the old phone in so we don't run out of juice. Empty out the old oil. I always rebuild a shock before meeting. If you're a buggy man, you'll know that rebuilding a shock on the day is important because the temperature in the room will have an effect on the viscosity of the oil. So if it's a super cold day outside, the viscosity of the oil that you have in your shock will actually run a different viscosity to what you put in. The hotter it is, again, it changes the viscosity as it gets colder. There's actually a relatable chart that actually tells you what temperature the viscosity of your oil behaves at, as I say, relative to the temperature. So what 500 weight oil will behave like at 28 degrees or 22 degrees or 18 degrees. So that's something worth bearing in mind. We're going to have a podcast coming out after the National, but this weekend hopefully we can get around the pits and interview a few people along the way. Be a bit of fun. That's if they want to be interviewed. Just going to check that. Make sure that that's nice and smooth. Get some oil out. Drop the oil. I use Mark Reinhard stuff purely because I like the bottles, and also no, there's no and also actually, it's just because the bottles I like. So that's why I use that. Zen Racing sell it. It's nice stuff. Just pump the shock a few times. I've got a Huddy vacuum, but I don't know. I just don't know. I'm just not a fan of it. It doesn't feel like it does what I want it to do. It feels just a little bit coarse, trying to suck the air out of the shock. I'd much rather let it settle and go out of its own accord. So that then gets left there. Leave that there to get rid of those last little air bubbles. Now there's quite a few of you watching now. Let me know where you're watching from. Be good to hear from you. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Nice cup of tea. I believe the world or the UK was built on tea. Huddy Tweak Station. And my little 12 scale box full of boxes of spares. Now I'm pretty sure I have a new bladder in here, which is what I am wanting to pop on my shock. Now I replaced the O-ring last time, so I know that's still in good fettle, and I could feel it as well, so hence why I'm not replacing the bladder, for those of you that might normally do that, but I did that last time. Where are you, Mr. Bladder? Are any of you out there doing a bit of racing this weekend? If so, where are you racing? What class? Where are you doing it? And the most important question, are you going to win? This channel is for winners only. If you've ever watched a film called Glengarry Glen Ross, there is a fantastic point in the film where Jack Lemmon goes up to get a cup of coffee in this sales meeting, and he goes, who is it? I think it's Nicholas. No, Nicholas Cage. Yeah, Nicholas Cage goes to him. Sit the fuck down. Coffee is for closers. And it's a very good film. So if you've not seen it, go check it out. Hey Mike, race last weekend, 17.5, 12 scale, and you won. Mike, welcome. You are always welcome here. You are a winner. Good on you, pal. What chassis do you run, and where did you run it? Give your little car a shout out. Be good to hear where you ran. Good, so there's no bubbles left in that now. I don't know if I can. I think I did this last time actually. There's no bubbles in there. It's all nice and hey Dave, bit of buggy practice. Love a bit of buggy practice. Do you get any cones out? Cones are so useful if you haven't tried them. Get yourself the little football cones, miniature football cones, and stick them out on the track. I've done a couple of videos of me at MB Models practicing. Cracking little things they are. So I'm just putting the bladder on the top here and just pushing it down, letting the extra oil push out the side. And I'm just going to push the shock a little bit further up. Just push it a bit further down again. Just make sure the bladder sits nicely on the top. I don't want to push it too hard. Now that's interesting. So Dave, how are you going to measure whether the setup stuff is making it faster, or is that just going to go on gut feel? Mike ran both the A12 and the new Roche, ended up sticking with the A12 for the main, ran in Omaha, Nebraska. Brilliant. What do you think of the new A12? How have you found that? A few of the guys in the UK who have been running it have found like the car doesn't have quite enough steering. They feel like it pushes a little bit. It'd be interesting to hear your take on how the A12 works out for you. That's no good. Perfect. Concentration, you can tell, can't you? So now I'm going to make sure that the hole is tipped upright and screw it in. Just going to go all the way in to start with, then I'm going to back it off, then I'm going to push it in. Slowly and as gentle as I can. And then screw it up the rest of the way. Don't want to do it too tight or else you can get the bladder caving in. I think that's pretty good. So I would agree with that you said about it pushing. This past weekend I ran the 6mm front end plates and the inline front hubs, and it was better. Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah, so I think there's a few guys running the A12. We when I was running the podcast series at MB Models, everyone loved the A12. There so many people going really well with it. And I think then when that was because the grip's quite high at MB Models, and then when the grip dropped off a little bit, I think a few people have stumbled a touch with it since then. Dave Loxley, yeah, just feel there's not going to be any timing running. Need to get it running better in the cold low grip. Yeah. What chassis do you run, Dave? I run the I've just bought myself one of those new wheel speeds, and that's been pretty cool. Enjoyed that. So that's the shock done. And there's no air in that. Just to double check. Perfect. Get that all cleaned off. The wife is out, so I thought I'd take the opportunity to do all this last minute prep. I've just trued up bloody 25 sets of tyres, which is not pleasant, is it? Whereas if we all know about the old the truing stuff, it's not fun. Nevertheless, I mean, someone said about that the other day. I don't think there's that much difference between the truing of tyres to doing buggy tyres, is there? I mean, cutting them off and putting them in acetone and then gluing them up and all that kind of stuff. Interesting. So I've got I had a Cal 3, Dave, and I bought the wheel speed. I bought the wheel speed version of Cal 3, and I didn't I didn't get the 3.1. So it'd be interesting to hear what is it that you like about the upgrades on the 3.1. Be interesting to hear. Okay, I'll put that shock on a little bit too short. Nope. I'll actually put it on pretty darn close, actually. I think that's a bit of the when you're building a shock and putting it on and getting the droop, etc., etc. I think that's the bit that people battle with, understanding what they've got to adjust where. So understand that if you want to make your car have lots of droop, you've got to make this shock longer. You've got a couple of options of how to make the shock longer. You can unscrew this end, so you can unscrew the plastic ball joint or ball stud or whatever you want to call it from the bottom, but you've only got a limited amount. Or you don't have to, when you tighten up the grub screw, you don't have to push this end all the way down the shock shaft. So that's a couple of ways to do it. Once you've then got the length of the shaft, the length of the shock correct, then you put it on the car. Then you want to make sure that you've got the ride height correct. So then to make the ride height correct, you need to adjust it with the coupling. So you would tighten up the coupling to make the shock expand and get longer because you're loading the spring. So the shock would then reach its maximum length. Or should I say, when the shock is loaded on the car, as you do the spring up, it's gradually lifting the middle of the car up. But of course, the more you lift the middle of the car up, the smaller you're making your droop amount. So effectively, how much you want your total uplift to be is the length of the shock, and then where the car sits is how much you load the spring. The difference between how much you load the spring and the total uplift will dictate the amount of droop, and the total uplift, as I say, is dictated by the length of the spring, the length of the shock. I hope that makes sense. So Dave says, I've got everything but the chassis and rear arms. The rest of the parts have given it more steering. Okay, good. That's great. That is good. Are you doing the Nationals, Dave? I don't know you. Obviously, you're sort of up north, and I've only really been up north with 12 scale. I'm definitely going to be doing some Nationals this year. I managed to get my F grading last time out, and so I'm going to give the old Nationals a go if I can get into them, that is. Oops. So now I'm going to pop the shot back on the cart. Let's lift that camera up a bit so you can see a bit more. At this point, I'm going to go and get myself a lipo. So I'm not a sponsored driver. I just choose to run Trinity stuff. I ran these at the Chesterfield Shootout, where I was fortunate enough to TQ, and I was getting like 0.8 IR on these. These are really good, so well worth an investment if you are after some lipos. So just going to pop the lipo in and then bolt her down. No Nationals for me just yet. I'll be doing Mid-East Regionals, Opel Series and some Track Nationals if I have time. Opel Series looks good. That seems to be well supported. Again, something I'd like to do. Lovely. So just going to measure front ride height. So these aren't actually the tyres that I'm going to be running. So I'm now going to pop a set of the tyres that I am actually running on, so that belts and braces, that everything is bob on. Got a question from Mike. What is your charge routine like? 0.8 is pretty good for an 8,000 pack. So I have a cycle that I put my lipos through. I've got a 40 amp discharge bank, and so on the iCharger, I've done a video on it. I've done it on the iCharger. I stick it on my cycle, which is from storage voltage. It discharges it at 40 amps, then it stores it for 5 minutes, lets it cool down, and then I charge it back up at home at 40 amps, and I'll do that the night before to get the old lipos fired up, and then on the day I'll follow the restrictions that we have to charge at 3C, which is different for EFRA and IFMAR, I believe. You can charge it what you like, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the case. but then I charge at 3C, which is what the lipo is, the factory recommendation is for the lipo, and that gave me 0.8. So lipo was very good. Very impressed with them. Very impressed with them. What would be your routine, Mike? Hey Greg, welcome along. Greetings from Colonies. What size do you true to initially? So I am truing my tyres to 41.5 on the front and 41.5 on the rear. So I don't have any stagger between the two. And then invariably the fronts will wear down a bit quicker. The next day I will then skim them so that both of them will start again at the same size. Pretty similar, but I do that discharge and charge routine at the track before the race. Yeah, we're not allowed to do that in the UK, unfortunately. We're pretty cautious about the older charge rates and stuff. Yeah, I thought that's the case, Mike. Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's slightly different. The US and the UK is slightly different. I mean, I know that you guys are super careful and stuff, but I definitely see far more people not charging in lipo sacks in the US than I see in the UK. You'll get chucked out of the room if you got found charging a lipo not in a lipo sack. I've seen many people charging without a lipo sack in the US, which is, I find that quite alarming, quite frightening. But you know, whatever does it for you, it's all good. So yeah, so these are my race tyres or race wheels that I'm going to put on, just to make sure that I don't have any issues that when I get to the track then I've got to start faffing about with ride height 8 doing all of that. Yeah, I thought you always use the sack, Mike. It's the smart play, isn't it? I remember being at the GT12 Worlds in Milton Keynes, and someone's charger went up in front of me and started smoking and all that kind of stuff. It's scary stuff if you've ever been in front of a lipo, and it's not gone well. So there's my race tyres on now. 3.2 on the front and 3.4 on the rear. Check my droop in the middle. Needs a touch more load on the spring. That's great. I'm just going to wind a little bit of that droop in. That's it. So, got any questions up here? Greg, thanks. I'm the States on CRC black carpet. We run more like 4.25. Yeah, you're good old fashioned. Are you gluing your sidewalls as well? I went over and ran the NYGP down in New York, Donnie Lear's place, and everyone's gluing their sidewalls, stopping grip roll and all that kind of stuff. It's a bit of a pain, that, got to tell you. Not a massive fan, but is what it is. So I've got a bit too much stagger on the front. Just going to take a little shim out the front of the car. Got 0.4 of a stagger there. I don't want that. I only want 0.2 of a stagger from front to rear. Fine. What is it about? There you go. Idiot. Yeah, full glue, yeah. Yeah. Not a fan of that, got to tell you. Not a fan of that. How do you find it? Do you like it? So I need a different ride height shim on that. That's a little on the skinny side. Couple of those. Just to get the ride height bob on. I'm running 1.5 degrees of caster on this, my X-ray. This is the 22 cart. If you're watching and you're not a subscriber, it's free. Click the subscribe button. It would certainly help my little channel keep growing. And if you're watching, it would be awesome if you could hit the little like button, the little thumbs up. It would be very much appreciated. So that's that. Hopefully that's now perfect. There we go. Lovely. So 3.4, 3.6. Pop those back in. It's all of these little incidentals that just eat into your time when you're at the track first day. I don't know what you guys find. You just end up just losing time just from nowhere. I find it really annoying. I'd much rather be, doing other stuff, like sitting there with my feet up, feeling all nice and prepared while everyone's cutting out body shells and all that kind of stuff. So Greg says he's been using full glue since Jacko started making two-stage tyres just after the 2004 Worlds. Just part of the game, just cutting down new tyres. Yeah, absolutely, it's part of the game. Yeah, absolutely. Just different to the UK because of obviously our levels of grip are not as high as yours, But no, it's part of the game. All good. So just want to make sure that body shell's not going to be touching. I want to do a little bit of trimmage around the sides. Love a little bit of freehand cutting with curved scissors. Absolute art form, of which I have all of the skills. go. So if you're just tuning in, welcome along. Great to have you. Just doing a little bit of, as the title suggests, a bit of pre-flight checks ready for the National at the weekend. You are watching me in the UK here. Just get my 12 scale ready for our first of our 12 scale Nationals. We have a national series. It used to be sport on the Saturday and stock on the Saturday and sport on the Sunday. It's fundamentally sport and stock, 13.5, much the same, but then on the Sunday it always used to be guys likes of Dave Spashett, Ollie Payne doing mod on the Sunday. But now, because the entry for mod is non-existent, and yeah, that's principally it. I think they're now going to run 2 national events over a weekend, so it's only stock racing, all the same guys running Saturday and Sunday. On the same track. I don't think there's going to be any changes to the track on the for the Sunday. Pretty sure it's just running the same track. There we go. Super. That's that all good. Another shot. I want to make sure something not quite right there. Oh, that'll be it. Just going to trim those holes just a little bit, because ideally wants to just kind of drop on the car. Sharp reamer is always useful. This is a BMI, body mass index. It's a BMR shell. Just going to trim those little holes there. Just want to make sure that it just falls on. There we go, that's better. Perfect. Jolly good. That's the shells all good to go. Make sure that the car is nice and straight. So just pull that in there. Take that out. There. Put that in there. So I haven't got any oils in my car. I always do that on the track, at the track on that day. So it's only the springs propping the car up. I've already made sure that this chassis is balanced. So I'd already taken out off the springs and then done this drill without springs on, so I know that the pod is absolutely balanced. Should I say the chassis is balanced? I believe they call that perfect. Beautiful. That's spot on. And nuts and bolts, she's good to go. As I say, I'm just going to be putting the oils on Saturday. Doors open on Friday evening at 8 o'clock. Not a massive fan of that. Epoxy letting the doors open early, man. It does my head in. Good evening, Simon. Welcome along. Are you ready for the 12 scale national, my friend? I think the BRCA have got a bit of a tough gig going on this weekend. We've not been racing for a national for 2 years. There's been plenty of racing going on. Well, we had the On-Road Podcast race series. There's been lots of guys improving. I like to think I'm one of them. There's new people come to the hobby. And then, so the grading is going to be interesting for people. So hopefully that all plays out okay. And there's a little bit of flexibility in the seedings in the heats. But we'll see how that plays out. But I'm sure, we're all just happy to get racing, aren't we? So it doesn't really matter too much. Nathan Wilson, you're absolutely right. GT12 is also running at Eastbourne this weekend. I'm not sure how many people are running. I'm not sure how many are in the heat, or in their heats, should I say. It'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. Good to see GT12 up and running again. You make an interesting point, Simon. The grading will be interesting to see, but as I say, we're all just keen to get racing, aren't we? So if there's no other questions, chaps, that's kind of me all done. I'm just going to pack all my bits away. Not sure that you need to see me do that. If you've got any questions, I'm here and happy to answer them. I'm going to be documenting the weekend as much as I can, and as much as the internet and my network coverage can cover me. There's 30 for GT12 as they head to open more entries. Oh, fantastic! So there's I believe the heats are cars, 8 cars in each heat. So there'll be a good amount of heats on Saturday. I think there's actually 10 heats, because I think there's 80 people that have entered. I think there's 50 for LMP and 30 for GT12 by the sounds of it. So there's 10 heats of 8, so there's 80 people. And that's about it. As I say, look out for updates on the Facebook page. I'll be posting when I can, with results and feeds when I can. If you can, share them around social media. It always helps the channel. And look out for a podcast coming on the other side. That's going to be with interviews with drivers and that sort of thing. and hopefully we can tell a bit of a story of the 12 Scale National this weekend. I know plenty of people are looking forward to it. So join us this weekend at Eastbourne. Stay tuned. If you like this video, click the like button. It'd be much appreciated. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you don't miss another video. And I look forward to seeing you all trackside soon.